All right, AP Psych, first screencast of the new year. So, talk about language. The people at the end with the theories, Whorf, Skinner, and Chomsky, those are going to be really the main people from the unit. There's not too many people with thinking, so the people we talk about in this one, those are going to be the more important ones. So, obviously, we're talking about language. Language and thinking obviously are going to go together because you express your thought process in a form of language, whether that be math with numbers or written expression. Obviously, these two things are going to go hand in hand. Also, another thing with language, the earlier a child learns language, the more intelligent they usually become, just because when language is accessible, you're exposed to way more ideas, way more thoughts, way more expressions, way more other voices, way more other opinions. So usually the smarter individuals, higher intelligence scoring, they're going to learn to think, talk sooner. Also, people who learn multiple languages also perform better on all academic endeavors. So, all right, it'll work. Maybe. There we go. So, language itself. Obviously, this is going to be spoken or written or gestured work. So you can have sign language, you can have body language, mathematic expression, or even written or spoken expression. And those are ways you convey meaning and communicate with others within your circle, your society, and people within your general environment. So it helps us transmit our culture. It helps us store memories, recite memories, and it also helps us solve and plan. We do that through language. When we look at language structure, first part of language is a phoneme. PH, always think phonics. Reading phonetically, you're sounding out the word by syllable. So phonemes are going to be our smallest sound unit in language. So it's your alphabet sounds, A, B, C, and then your CH, PH, TH, those sounds also. So BAT is going to have three phonemes, BAT. Chat is going to have three, CHAT. And then we look at our second part, morphemes. This is the unit that carries meaning. So you can break down a word into its parts. Think STEM words. This is going to be, if they still do STEM words over in the middle school, this is going to help, or think similar to this. But it's basically the smallest part of a word that carries meaning. So milk is only going to have one. Pumpkin is going to have two. Pump and kin, those are two distinct words. And then unforgettable is going to have unforget and table. So notice all those parts or all those chunks are going to have meaning. So that's going to be the morpheme. I will look at grammar. These are going to be the rules in which enable all of us to understand the language. Kind of like if we put ed on a verb, that's past tense. The I before E, except after C. Those are going to be our grammar rules. So when we look at semantics, this is where you derive meaning from. And so when we look at the semantic rule, add ed at the end of laugh to get laughed. That means you laughed at a joke in first period, or you laughed at a joke this past weekend. So that's going to be our meaning. Syntax, these are going to be rules for combining words. So semantics is how you change meaning of, or how you conjugate verbs. Syntax is going to be your punctuation and your spelling. Like the idea of White House, but in Spanish we say Casablanca. It's reversed. It's just the noun adjective agreement, verb adjective agreement, or subject and predicate agreement. Those are going to be our syntax rules. Now when we look at the stages of language, babbling stage, that's going to be about 4 months to a year. The baby itself, when it first starts babbling, will not mimic languages spoken at home. In fact, most of the times the baby starts to babble are from other languages, not ours, or not the primary one spoken in the home. So after about 10 months, then the baby will actually start to imitate or produce babbling sounds. Like you try to get the the child to say mama first instead of mom, or dad first instead of dad. That's kind of going from the 10-month period of babbling into the actual word stage itself. So one word stage, pretty simple. It's holophrastic stage. You say one thing, it means a lot more. Like say, if you just say juice and hold a cup up, parents are going to know that what you're really saying is I want juice. Or when you exclaim, there's a dog outside, hey, I want to go see that dog, different things like that. And then 2-word stage, we just had another one, telegraphic speech, go car. I would like to go for a ride in the car. Notice, though, it is in syntactical sense. You have the verb, then you have the noun. So we're starting to actually apply those rules. Common error, though, is we overgeneralize. So like when you first learned that ed made a verb made it past tense, children will often say goed instead of went, because goed is the strict interpretation of the rule. Once they learn a rule, they apply it to everything. And then the longer phrases, this is where syntax and semantics are more correctly used. They start to be mastered, and now we actually understand symbolic language. Like mom does not represent, like Santa Claus represents Christmas, which Christmas also represents giving thanks, making people happy. Now, when we look at language development, 3 basic theories. Operant learning, got to go right along with Skinner. Basically, once the child starts to begin to speak, parents make a big deal. They reward them with either attention, or now the child can get what they're asking for or want. So basically, language is environmentally driven. Your parents are very excited for your first words, so now you start to speak more and more. So the reward of getting what you want or explaining your feelings provides the basis for operant conditioning language. The nativist theory, this is going to be more of the nature theory. So the nurture would be the operant conditioning. So nature, we're almost programmed to learn language. This is going to be proposed by Chomsky. And basically, he's going to say that based on operant conditioning principles, we learn language much too fast for it solely to be explained through there. So to counterbalance, Chomsky is going to say that we are born with the capacity to learn language. So as soon as we're exposed to the language, we start to learn it, program it genetically into our brain, and then, through our neurons, not genetics. And then the rewards also help. So your environment determines which languages we learn, but the genetics is going to allow us to learn it. And then the last one, which is a little bit of a reach, but if you combine all 3, it's probably going to be our best explanation of why language is learned or how it's learned. So we have the statistical learning and critical periods. Before our first birthday, our brains start to actually form a pathway of language. So what syllables go together, what don't. So like happy baby, we know that's going together. You can also kind of look at once you're exposed to like foreign last names. Like the first time I remember having a teacher with a Polish last name, it was the C and Z were not normally in that combination. So a lot of kids had trouble pronouncing her name. So she was just Miss K instead of Miss, I don't even remember her name. But we couldn't pronounce her name, so she was just Miss K. So here we're looking at the brain as being really like computer-like. And basically our environment's going to put the language that we're learning, and then it's just going to calculate it or put it through our language learning pathway. And then our main theory with language and intelligence, and language and thinking, is Whorf's linguistic determinism or linguistic relativity hypothesis. Basically, all he's going to argue here is that your language determines your thinking. So why are we able to second guess ourselves and worry about mistakes we've made? That's because we have past tense of language. And why are we worried about the future? What college you're going to get into? We have a future tense. So like one of the best examples is the Hopi tribe does not have a past tense in their language. So a lot of people, when they first met the Hopi, they would argue, or they were labeled as a people without a past, because they didn't talk about like creation myths as it happened. They say it's happening. So it influences what you think basically by your combination of language. So you can look at like an English speaker has a rich vocabulary of self-focused emotions. So we're usually viewed as more egotistical, more selfish, more greedy, because our language has a lot of I, me expression. Whereas the Japanese, they have a lot more we emotions, such as sympathy. So an example of that, in America, it's not even a second thought that some parents are put into a nursing home. Whereas in Japan, since they have more words for sympathy, there's not very many nursing homes, and the children take care of their parents when they're old. So that's it. Remember, you'll need this in the thinking one Monday for your screencast check.